And we are live. I'm sorry, I had to check first before we actually go live because we have a 30-second delay, and it would be weird to be online and talking to nobody, right? Because well, we already here at home, everybody is, but this is what we usually do at the virtual jug. So today, welcome. I love that you all here. You're still looking good, and you're still here looking at some nice content we have today. Let me quickly open some slides. So we have actually. Oh, then I need to share my screen. That's always the big thing. If I share my screen like this, and you will see my slides over here. Amazing. Thank you all for watching again, and welcome to another virtual jug session. And today we have a special session because we're going to talk about migration. But first of all, who is this? Well, this young guy was me a few years ago when we were still allowed to go into physical conferences and do physical meetups and that kind of stuff. You see that I changed a bit, and I have tiny beard now, but still, this is me. I'm Brian. I will be hosting this, and I am a developer advocate for Sneak. That's all you need to know about me because it's not about me. Although I have to mention the company again because it's our main sponsor. Sneaks helps us to do this live streaming stuff. And well, as you can see, it enables over 400,000 developers to continuously find and fix vulnerabilities in open source libraries and containers. And you can use it for free. That's all about the commercial stuff I'm going to say, because this is the important stuff. We're going to talk about migration beyond Java 8. And well, as you know, a lot of people are still on all older versions, right? And for that reason, Dalia, who is going to present this amazing talk, already put up a questionnaire or a simple poll on the live session channel within Slack. So please, during the talk, please vote on which version you currently are, because she might be using that during her talk. So please do that. Some housekeeping. Oh, let me get to another slide. It's always nice when things do not work, right?
At least it's not a demo.
It's all live. It's all live. Again, if you have questions, please go to the live session channel on our Slack so we can connect with each other. And if you have questions afterwards, I know Dalia is also on the Slack, so you can ask her afterwards, even if you were watching this on a recording. That's the nice stuff. If you like to share the stuff, please do, because afterwards, this video will be instantly live on the channel, instantly live on YouTube, and you can share it with friends, with family, preferably both. If you have any feedback, well, if you have any complaints, go directly to me so I can solve it. If you have any good feedback, please post it on the Slack or use our Twitter accounts. You see @virtualjug for the virtual jug, or you can post directly to me @BrianVerb. So that's enough for me. Let me go back. So Dalia, welcome.
Thank you, Brian. That was a great introduction.
How are you doing? I mean, we're all at home.
Yes.
How are you holding up?
I'm not bad, actually. I don't mind being by myself. But no, it's been good. I've been very productive. I think the main challenge is how to disconnect from work, but otherwise it's been pretty good for me. Can't complain.
All right, sounds good. What time zone are you? What time is it for you at this point?
So I am in Minnesota, USA. So it's 11 a.m. for me. So this is perfect timing.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, if for me it's 6 p.m. It's well 5 past. So let's get started. I love the background, but you're probably going to tell something about that, right?
Well, I figured let's keep it with the theme of migration, Windows XP right here. And I wanted to just have a cool background because we use WebEx. We don't have virtual backgrounds, so I wanted to kind of play around with it. So I chose this one.
All right, amazing. I want to say the floor is yours. I'm here if you need anything. I can help you out, of course. I will monitor the questions on the Slack channel. So if you have questions during this talk, please feel free to put it on the live session channel so I can, well, proxy the questions to Dalia at the end of her talk or when it's convenient. So the floor is yours, Dalia. Let's go.
Awesome. All right, let me share my screen. Awesome. And there we go. All right, well, thanks everyone for attending this talk. I'm Daya, and like Brian said, I posted a poll on the Slack channel asking people what Java version they're running, because it's always interesting to me knowing what are you running in production today. I am very surprised I don't have any Java 7 or 6 people out there, but maybe because I didn't make the poll anonymous, people are more reluctant to use that. But definitely, it's really great to see all the people that are using Java 11 and after already. That's really cool. Maybe let us know how that migration went for you in the Slack channel, maybe after the talk, and we can chat about, what was the biggest issues and all that stuff. I'll be basing all my talk about, migration issues from a lot of chats that I've had with different developers and so on and so forth. So let's get started. So a little bit about me. I'm Daya. I am the development lead for the WebSphere migration tools at IBM. Our team's goal is to make migrations as painless as possible. So what that means is we work with a lot of banks, retail companies, insurance companies, so on and so forth. And they have thousands and thousands of applications that they try to migrate. And having to do one app at a time is really not feasible for them. So they're looking for some automation in that space. And that's where our team comes in. We come in with our tools that they can run against their applications, and the tools help them figure out, okay, what is going to be a problem when you try to migrate? We've had these tools for years. We helped developers moving from Java 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8. I'm still getting requests about Java 8, and now with Java 11, we're doing Java 11 work, we're doing Java 14 work. So we had to do a lot of research and figuring out, okay, how is the tooling going to look like in this new release cadence that I'm going to be talking about in a bit. Besides Java migrations, we also do a lot of other migrations, like if you're on-premise and you're going to the cloud, we detect some stuff. You might be asking, okay, what kind of things that you detect? We detect things like, where you're calling to a database and you're moving your app to the cloud. Okay, are you taking your database with you? What's gonna happen with that connection to the database? Or if you're moving to Docker, we look at that and tell you, are you maybe persisting any files to your file system? Well, that's not going to work as well. You should be using data volumes. And, those kind of things we scan for and we flag. And we work very closely with our server development team. So we work with the Open Liberty team and the WebSphere application server team. And we do a lot of tooling for them as well. First question we should definitely answer is, why are we talking about this? Why even migrate? My application is running fine in Java 8 and it's successful and it's great. Why do I even need to migrate? Well, there's tons of really cool new features out there. So if you look at the release notes for all the different Java versions that came out from 9 all the way to 14, you'll see a really long list of really cool features. One of my favorite, or some of my favorite features that have come out is actually var. I know there's a little bit of debate of whether or not var is great or not. I think var is great. Venkat was even talking about it during one of his talks, and he was saying, you could get people to start liking var if you do this and that. So that was really cool. I also really like the new methods that got added to the collection class. There's really, I like writing concise code. So those methods really make a difference for me. And I thought it was really nice to be able to launch a single file source code pretty easily now with Java 11 and after. Just an example of what you get with Java 11. So before, if I wanted to create an unmodifiable list, I would have to declare an array list and put in my items and then assign it back to my list. Now you can do that with one line with Java 11 and after that. So you can use the new of method that got added to the list and add your items. And then I'm taking advantage of var here, so I don't have to declare my list twice. And I get the same functionality. Instead of 5 lines, I'm getting it in 1 line. So I really like that. Another reason to migrate is security improvements. So there's a lot of security improvements that came along, is the biggest one being TLS 1.3. I get questions about developers trying to convince management to let them upgrade, and this is one of the reasons you can definitely use is security improvements TLS 1.3 that's available in Java 11. So that's a big reason to move. Another one that is very important to our team is if you're a library or a tooling developer, you really need to be keeping up, because if anyone is using your libraries and you don't have a Java 11 compatible library for them to pull in, then they're pretty stuck. So this is something that has really motivated us as well. Lastly, of course, Java 8 is eventually going to go away. You're going to have to migrate anyway, so it's good to start early, figuring out what your issues are, and start taking advantage of those new features. All right, so we're talking about why we're migrating. We decided we're going to definitely migrate. What version of Java should I migrate to? So back in the day, it was a pretty simple answer. You had Java 6, it came out in 2006, and then 5 years later, Java 7 came out, and you went from 6 to 7. And then when Java 8 came out in March of 2014, you went from 7 to 8. So you didn't have a lot of choice. You just went from 6 to 7, 7 to 8. Now things change a little bit, starting with Java 9. So Oracle announced a new release cycle where we have short-term releases or feature releases that are in support for 6 months. And that started with Java 9. So we saw it with, in September 2017, Java 9 came out, and then it went right out of support with Java 10. And with those feature releases, we had this concept of long-term supported releases. So Java 8 was designated long-term supported, meaning that it's going to be supported for a long time versus the feature releases. But then by Java 11, we needed another long-term supported release. So that was designated the next long-term supported release of Java. So when I talk a lot about Java 11 and after. That's why, is because I'm saying you're going to Java 11, the most recent long-term supported release, or the most recent feature release. So we got Java 11, and then we got Java 12 in early March of last year, went out of support, and then it went to Java 13, went out of support, and now we're on Java 14 that came out early this year in March, last month actually. We're going to see this happening again with Java 15 and then Java 16, and then the next long-term supported release is going to be Java 17. So why do I show this slide? It's something that is very important to me. A lot of people online, a lot of developers have said that they're kind of worried about how far back their Java is. So they're on Java 8 and we're on Java 14 right now, and they're thinking, well, I'm really behind. Well, you're not behind. It's just that the release cycle has changed and the versioning has changed. So if you're on Java 8, you can go to Java 11 if you want the latest long-term supported release. And for me, because I live in the enterprise world, a lot of times it's not very realistic to ask developers to upgrade their Javas every 6 months. But some organizations have their pipeline pretty laid out and they can afford to do that. So if you are in either of those categories, great. But just know that if you pick up the latest Java 14, for example, you're going to need to upgrade it again in 6 months when Java 15 comes out, and the same with Java 16. And if your pipeline is great and it's perfect, then go ahead and do that. If not, then you can just upgrade to Java 11 for your environment. In my recommendation, I would say, run LTS in production and then keep testing with the feature releases, because if you have any migration issues or anything like that, you can pretty much figure out if you have issues early on instead of waiting all the way when Java 17 comes out. I also get asked, where can I get a free Java 11 build? I get mine from Adopt OpenJDK. So I'm running Java 11 with OpenJ9. You can get whatever binaries you want. You can get Java 14 as well, and they're always releasing new updates to those binaries. Wonderful. So we talked about why, we talked about where we're going, and now let's talk about what are the biggest issues that you're going to see when you upgrade to Java 11 and later. When I've done my research, I saw that there are 3 main categories of things that are going to possibly go wrong when you upgrade. You're either going to have missing libraries. So those are libraries that used to be in Java, and they are no longer there, but they've moved elsewhere. You're also going to have removed APIs. Those are APIs that were deprecated before, and Java was pretty lenient on just leaving things deprecated and still in Java. But now with Java 11 and later, they've been a lot more strict about what they're going to be removing. So you'll see that a lot of classes and methods got removed, things that were deprecated before. So you would probably have known that removal is coming, but now it's actually here and you need to take care of it. Third category is out-of-date dependencies. So if you're depending on any libraries, and of course most of you are, then you're going to need to update those libraries if they have any dependencies on the Java versions. Some of the libraries are going to be okay, some of them are not. We're going to talk more detail about each of these categories. So in Java 8, you had your application. Your application was relying on libraries that are in Java SE. Those libraries include Java EE libraries and also Java Web Start and Java FX. If you have your application and it's calling anything like JAXB, for example, that's the library that converts Java objects to XML, you are relying on Java SE to provide that library. Now in Java 11, those libraries no longer are shipped in Java SE itself. Let's take a look at that a little bit in detail. So there were 6 modules that were impacted by this removal in the Java EE space. So if your application is using any of these packages, take a look a little bit on that. Then once you go to Java 11, your application will no longer work because you're going to get a no class found exception. The biggest one that really hit us and the OpenLiberty team was JAXB, and a lot of people in the field. A lot of applications are using JAXB and then they switch versions and JAXB is no longer there. So that might be your application as well. You have 2 solutions for that. The first is to just pack it into, so add it as an additional dependency to your application, or if you're using an app server, you can rely on your app server to provide that library yourself. So in OpenLiberty, we decided this is disruptive enough that we're going to ship the libraries with OpenLiberty so that it's really easy for folks that are migrating to just configure their server XML and tell OpenLiberty to bring those libraries in. So those 2 options are out there for you. If you have any questions or anything about where JAXB or JAXWS or any of those technologies are going, definitely check out the Jakarta EE website. That's the new Java EE platform, and you can see all the new features coming out. They're working on Jakarta EE9 right now. It's really good, and there's a lot of cool new things happening in that space. If you're using WebStart, you can get WebStart because it's available open source now on openwebstart.com. Check out the websites there and see if that works for your application. If you're using Java FX, same there. That is now open source, and you can grab grab that dependency into your application. So that's the first category, missing libraries that were there in Java SE and now they are elsewhere. Now, removed APIs are things that are deprecating and you can't really get them anymore. There's a lot of things that got removed. I'm going to go through them really quickly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on a lot of them, but I want to give you a taste. A lot of these were deprecated before, and you're going to see the doc telling you, okay, here's what you use instead of what you have. For example, if you're using ComSun, the codec JPEG package, then you can use the Java image IO instead. There's a lot of Solaris packages that got removed, and you can probably guess what the replacement is, but let's take a look. So in Java 8, you would have been using, for example, Solaris numeric group principal class. It gives you a warning. You ignore the warning because it still works. Java 11, it's not going to work anymore. And what you need to replace it with is the Unix equivalent. So obviously, anything that has Solaris in the name has just been replaced with Unix. So some of these replacements are pretty straightforward. Just find and replace. Some of the others are going to require a little bit more research, but definitely you'll see in the Java doc what the replacement is. More packages and classes got removed. So the internal JAXB package got removed, and you should never be using internal APIs anyways. But if you really, really need to use this, you can remove the internal from the package name and pull in your own JAXB packages. Just don't tell anyone I said that. And then there's a lot of peer packages that got removed. And one of the example code that I've seen online is this call to get peer. And what's interesting about this call is that the method itself is not the problem. It's the object that the method returns. So that's why you're getting the warning here. In Java 11, you're going to get a compile failure. And with this specific call, you're going to get the same functionality if you call button is displayable instead of get peer. But that's kind of a flavor of what you could see in your application. Some of the other classes that really impacted folks is base64 decoder, base64 encoder. And instead of those two classes, use a Java util base64 classes. And there's a bunch of DOM classes that got removed as well. Besides classes and packages, there's a bunch of methods that got removed. A lot of the security manager methods got removed. So you would have gotten a warning, then a compile failure, and then for that specific removal, you need to be calling the check permission method instead of the check access method. In the I call it the cleanup space. So I've noticed that Java's starting to really remove a lot of the finalizer methods. And I saw this bug that was really good in terms of understanding why this is happening. Finalizers are kind of problematic when you're using them. They can cause performance issues, deadlocks, so on and so forth. So they wanted to remove those methods and encourage people to be cleaning up their resources in a more safe way. Use try with resources to clean up your resources. If you're using destroy or stop in the thread classes, make sure that you're using a variable instead of the stop method. Things like that, where you want to make sure that if your application is cleaning up its resources, those are really getting cleaned up. I get a lot of memory leak issues reported to me, and it's a pain to debug. So take a look at that. If you're using any of these methods and it starts breaking, it starts giving you a compile failure, figure out, okay, how am I cleaning up my resources? Should I be doing it better? And a bunch of the pack 200 methods got removed from Java 11. In Java 14, the pack 200 class got removed altogether. So for now, you could still be using the replacement for these methods, but once you hit Java 14, then that interface or class is no longer there. The add property change listener, remove property change listener for the log manager also got removed. So we talked about Java 11 really quick. I will hit Java 14. So this slide is covering if you're going from Java 8 and you're going from, actually you're going from Java 11 all the way to Java 14. So these are the things that happened in 12, 13, and 14. You got the security warning class got removed. The security ACL packages got removed. The package and the classes got removed. Instead of using that, you should use Java security policy. And the PAC 200 class got removed as well, and its interfaces. So if you're using PAC 200, you're going to need to remove that. All the tooling got removed with it as well. So you can use JLink or JPackage tools if you're using PAC 200 to compress your applications. Some methods got removed. So like I said, you know, that finalize methods are getting removed. And the more and more Java versions are coming out, I'm seeing more and more of those finalized methods getting cleaned up, and the trace methods got removed as well. All right, so covered the two first categories. Now the third category is out-of-date dependencies. So you probably have a lot of dependencies that you're bringing into your application, and you're going to need to update a lot of these. So if you're using any libraries like ASM, for example, we're using ASM because we're scanning bytecode in our tool. So we had to upgrade that in order to get our application to work on Java 11 and later. If you're using Mockito, you're going to have to upgrade. If you're using Spring, you're going to have to upgrade. You're probably going to have to upgrade your build tools too. So if you're using Gradle, Maven, you're going to have to upgrade those. And you're probably going to have to upgrade your IDEs as well. So I've had to upgrade my Eclipse. If you're using IntelliJ, VS Code, any of those, you're probably going to need to upgrade it. If you're using any application servers, you're probably going to have to upgrade that as well. So, you know, OpenLiberty or any of the other app servers. So my advice is take this time to just go through and upgrade your dependencies. I know we like to wait because you don't want to deal with anything breaking accidentally, but you're going to be running those tests anyway. So might as well just upgrade your dependency, get those security fixes, bug fixes, all those dependencies updated. And there are some really cool automation tools you could use to update your dependencies easier, so you're not having to do it manually. So check those out. I'll talk about one in a bit. So I didn't hit modularity at all. So what about modularity? In case you're not familiar with what modularity is, which most of you probably are, it's the idea of breaking up Java into different packages or modules that applications can declare dependencies on. So an application doesn't have to grab all of Java. It can just declare its dependency on a module and say, this is what I need. This is what I'm going to put in my container. And it really helps with your memory footprint and all that good stuff. Now, the problem is when you're talking about migration, a Java 8 application has no concept of modularity. So once you put it in a modular environment, it doesn't really declare anything about what it's using. So it can be pretty disruptive for migrations. There is a kill switch, and it's on by default. It used to not be on by default, and it was causing a lot of issues. But then it is on by default, and it's the illegal access option, and it's set to permit. My advice is keep that kill switch on, migrate to Java 11, get everything else resolved, and then figure out if modularity makes sense for you. So don't get too hung up on modularity and thinking if you go to Java 11, you have to have modules and all that stuff. No, you can just upgrade to Java 11, take care of all the things that I talked about, the missing packages, the upgraded dependencies, all that stuff, keep the kill switch on. And then once you're ready and you want to use modules, then you can turn it on and start breaking up your application into modules. There's a lot of good resources on that topic. I thought it was really interesting. One of the questions that came out in the JVM ecosystem report of this year asked, are you using or are you planning to use Java modules in your Java applications? And you can see that 64% of people said no. 29% said they're planning to, and 7% said they are. So you can kind of tell that people on the field, even though they're using Java 11, they're really not using modularity yet. So we can, if you're not using modularity, that's completely okay. Okay, so we talked about the problems. We talked about possible solutions. What tools can I use to make my migration easier? So I'll be talking about different tools. The first one I'm going to start with is the tool, the binary scanner tool. So this is a tool that my team works on. It's a command line tool. It's really lightweight, and it's free for personal commercial use. I get that question all the time. And what this tool does is it takes your binary classes, it scans it for any classes or methods that we know you're going to have a problem once you upgrade, and it tells you about it in a report. You can scan it against one app, you can scan it against hundreds of apps, but it will scan it for you and it'll tell you if you're gonna have any issues going to Java 11. And I included a link to the documentation if you want to look at it. There is a lot of other rules that the binary scanner looks for as well, but I'm gonna be only covering the Java SE related tooling rules for this. The other tool that's helpful is JDEPs. So JDEPs is a tool that started getting shipped with JDK 8. It's a tool that's in Java itself. And when you're using JDEPs, just remember, make sure you're using the JDEPs that's shipped with your target Java. So if you're going to Java 11 or Java 14, make sure that you're using the JDEPs that gets shipped with that target. So Java 14. The relevant option for JDEPs is JDK internals. You can use that option and it will tell you if you're using any internal packages that are no longer available, and it will suggest replacements. The reason I included JDEPs here is because there are additional insights that JDEPs can give you, but I've also noticed that it doesn't highlight other issues such as like removed methods or Java EE classes that got removed, or any of the other issues that came with Java 11. So what we ended up doing is having the binary scanner recommend running JDEPs if we see any internal classes being used in your application. So you could start with the binary scanner, and if it tells you to run JDEPs, you can run JDEPs. And you can run JDEPs anyway and see if it gives you any good information there. And I also included a link to the documentation. Third tool that I think would be helpful to look into is any tooling that automates your dependency updates. So you can have a tool like Dependabot that I'm going to show you in a bit. What it does is it looks at your Maven or Gradle file, and it tells you, okay, there is a new version of this dependency available out there. It creates a pull request for you, and it updates the dependency for you, so you don't have to do it manually each time. So I think tools like that are really good, so that you don't have to do all these updates manually. All right, let's take a look at the demo. All right, so for my demo, what I wanted to do here is have an application that kind of presents your application. So maybe you have one of your apps that's running on Java 8. And in my app, it's very basic. So it's only 2 classes. Let me show you what's in here. So my application, we have, right here, we have a weather object. This is a JAXB object. And the weather object has a few variables here. And what I'm wanting to do with this is I want to take my Java object, my weather object, and convert it to XML. So while you're looking at this, I want you to think about your app. I want you to think about what kind of classes you're using, what kind of, what kind of methods you're using, and how you're going to approach your migration. So in my case, I have JAXB. I'm writing out my JAXB object to XML, converting it to XML. And I also threw in an encoding and decoding method in here so that I can make it an interesting migration. So, I'm writing XML, I'm looking at I'm encoding my forecast and I'm decoding it and printing it out. So let's take a look at what gets printed out when I run it. Okay, so let's take a look at what version I'm running right now. All right, so I'm on Java 8. I have my app, and I just want to run my app on Java 8 and see what it does. I'm using Gradle. If you're using Maven, it's pretty much the same. I just wanted to get some practice with Gradle, and that's why I'm using Gradle in this demo. But you can just replace Gradle with Maven in any of these steps. So I've just run the app, and what the app did is it took my weather. So for me, I should have explained. So I live in Rochester, Minnesota. It's kind of rainy today, so that's what I put in here. And what it did, it converted it to a weather XML element, and it included all my different Java object variables in here. So that's good. And then it also took my forecast and it encoded it. And that took my encoded forecast and decoded it. Of course, this is a sample app. You're not going to do this in real life, but it's pretty interesting to see that you can do all this stuff and it works on Java 8 just fine. So you can probably guess what I'm going to do next. I'm going to switch to Java 11. I just have a script that does it for me, and I'm going to check the version. So I'm running with Java 11 now, and let's try running our app. Yep. So just tried to run it with Java 11, got a bunch of errors, even though it's just 2 classes. At this point, if you run with Java 11 and it runs and it's great, then forget all what I'm about to say and just go along your way, do your test and perfect, it's great. Otherwise, if you have a problem, you have 2 choices at this point. You can go through each and every one of these items, Google away, fix it, all that stuff, or you can use a tool like the one that I've been mentioning. So here's what you can do. So I want to go to use the binary scanner tool. This is where you would get it. And I'm including all these links, and I'm going to post them right after the session. So you can get the binary scanner right here. You go ahead and download it, and it downloads just a sec. So what it does is it downloads an installer, and you just run java-r on it, and it's gonna expand it and install it right in here. And it has all the PDF. And by the way, you'll see that we have different language support in here. So we have Spanish, French, all the different languages supported in here. So you can run the binary scanner with different languages, and you'll get the report in different languages. Okay, so I went ahead and downloaded the binary scanner, and I'm ready to run it. So let's go ahead and do that. Java-jar, I'm gonna point it at my binary scanner. And then what I'm gonna do here is, I'm gonna point it at my jar. So what we're doing is we're scanning bytecode. So you need to point me at your built jar. In my case, my built jar is in my libs directory. So I'm just gonna point it at that. And what the binary scanner needs to know is, what should I be looking for when I'm scanning your application? So what I wanted to do is analyze Java SE. So we have like a bunch of rules. We analyze Java EE, we analyze other things. So you need to tell it, look for any Java SE issues. And then you're gonna tell me what Java version I'm coming from. So in my case, I'm coming from IBM 8. You could do Oracle 8. You could do Oracle 6. I know some of you out there are still using 6. And then you're going to tell me what your target Java is, so I can know what kind of rules I should be scanning for. So you have options here. So you can do Java 11, or right now we have support for Java 13, because Java 14 just came out last month, and we're planning on adding 14 support in a month as well. So if you want to go to 14, you can use the 13 option for now, and then when comes June, you can use the 14 option then. We're also having trouble keeping up with the Java version, so don't feel like you're alone. It's kind of interesting in our space. But since I've been talking about Java 11 a lot, let's focus on Java 11, and let's run the binary scanner. Oh, it ran really quick and it came out, and it's because my app just has 2 classes. Your app probably has lots and lots of classes. So what's going to happen here is you're going to get an info message right away. It tells you what kind of packages that we're scanning and what kind of packages we're skipping. We skip any third-party packages, mainly because you can't really do anything. If it's in a third-party package, you're going to have to update your dependency anyway. So there's no point from scanning your app, your dependencies, and figuring out what problems there are there. You can't really do anything about them. So what we do is we exclude them by default. Now, if your company's name starts with any of these names, then you probably need to override it with the include and exclude packages. But for me, I'm not using any of these, so I'm good to go. So just take a look at that really quick. Make sure that your company doesn't start with org or anything like that. So it's gonna scan it, and what it's gonna do is produce a report and tell you, all right, I scanned your app, and here's the problems that I found. So let's take a look at that report. So here's a report. At the top, it tells you what options you put in, and it looks like it found 3 issues with 6 results, meaning that there's 3 types of issues here with 4 of one of the issues. So there's 3 categories of issues we're going to be looking for. We're going to look for severe issues, issues that once you switch, there's probably no chance that your app is going to run on Java 11, and we're going to highlight that with the severe messages. Warnings are things that are probably going to be a problem, but maybe they're not. So maybe look at that and figure out what's going on. And then the informational message are things that you should know about, have in the back of your mind. Some cases are hard to detect without making it too noisy. So we put it there just in case you hit a problem in production and you might be wondering, all right, what is this related to? Then you have read it in the report and you get an idea of what it could be. So let's take a look at this. So the first issue it found is related to using Sun packages. So it looks like we're using some internal packages. It really doesn't like it. So you can take a look at the rule help to get more information about the rule. It says the APIs are unsupported. And if you're using base 64 and encoder and decoder, you should instead use base 64. So, while I was talking about the presentation and all the different replacements, we put all that info into the report, so you don't have to know about it unless it's in your application. So you can just run the tool and then learn about it when it's relevant to you. And then if you're wondering where in your app you're using it, we have all the hits. So it looks like I'm using it in my app class, and it has the line numbers as well. The line numbers can be a little bit off just because we're using ASM, but it's pretty much in that ballpark of where you're calling it. Okay, so that's the first thing. It looks like we're using an internal package. Let's look at the second thing. Looks like, okay, so looks like we use JAXB, and JAXB was removed, like I mentioned, some of those Java EE APIs. So if you look at the rule help, it'll tell you, if you're on Liberty, you can just enable JAXB 2.2. Otherwise, you can include it as dependency. It tells you what packages you could be using. And we're only going to look and detect this once in your application, because once you include the dependency, we don't need to hit it every time anymore. It's just a one-time fix, and you're done. So that's good. And then the third issue that we're finding is, looks like it's just an informational thing that tells you should run JDAPs. So it looks like my app is using an internal class, and I want you to be running JDAPs just so that you can get an idea of what kind of classes what kind of internal classes you're using and what you should be using instead. Okay, cool. So I ran the report. I got an idea of what I'm facing, and let's go back to our app. Okay, so the first issue that it said was we had internal classes being used. and it talked about base64 encoder or decoder. So it looks like it doesn't like my base64 encoder and decoder. But right now I'm kind of looking at my Eclipse and it's not really giving me any good hints. So I'm going to switch my build path to Java 11. And let's see what it happens. Okay, so now we can get an idea of, all right, this is not good. I have a lot of issues here, but the report told me how to fix them. So it looks like I'm used base64. I'm going to replace that. So let me show you really quick how we do this. So in cases base64 encoder, you're using base64 in the Java util class, and you're going to call the encoder class in here and then get the encoder. And in case of base64, the methods are a little bit different. So you're going to call encode to string if you're going to pass it back to a string. And that's all you need to do if you're just calling the encoder like this. In case of the decoder, it's going to be very similar. So you're going to call base64.get decoder. And then same, the methods change slightly. So you just need to find the equivalent. In this case, it's the decode methods, and just click save and see what happens. So now the method no longer returns an exception. So I need to get rid of this. So I'm going to remove those, my catch, and I'm going to reformat because I don't like not formatted classes. And that looks good. So let's take away those imports. And if you notice, it's not liking JAX-B, but you're not fixing JAX-B the same way you're fixing base64 based on the report. So the report is telling you if you're using JAX-B, what you need to do is pull it in as a dependency. So in case you're not using an app server or anything, here's how you fix the JAX-B problem. You go into your build file. So in my case, it's Gradle. In your case, it's Maven. And you're going to tell it where to find the JAX-B dependency. So it's going to be the Jakarta coordinates right here. I'm lazy, so I just commented it out. And we're going to save. So that's going to tell Gradle, go off, get those JAX-B dependency, put it into my app so that my application here sees the classes. So I'm still getting reds here, mainly because I haven't refreshed my dependencies. So let's do that. And it's going to take a sec. There it is. So I just refreshed my dependency, and now it sees the JAX-B classes. So it's all good here. So we talked about the first and the second issue. Let's take a look at what JDEPS gives us. So in terms of JDEPS, so again, make sure you're running the JDEPS with the target Java version. So if you run JDEPS, you're running with JDK internals, and you're going to point it at the jar. So same kind of concept as the binary scanner. And then you are going to do this, and let's see what JDEPS gives us. Okay, so JDEPS is scanning the app for the same issues, and it found one issue with internal packages because you're using base64 encoder, and it's telling you that the suggested replacement is Java util base64. So you already knew that. You replaced it already because the binary scanner told you so. In this case, you're not getting any new information, but maybe you have another internal class and you're not sure what the replacement is. Then you can run JDEPS and figure out, what JDEPS tells you the replacement is. Okay, so I think we fixed everything here. So let's try to run it again and see what happens. Let's see, Gradle, W, and we're gonna rebuild and we're gonna run. Moment of truth. Let's see if we actually fixed it. Awesome. All right, so we fixed all our issues and now our app is running again. So what we had to do is we had to get rid of any base64 encoder and decoder classes, replace that with base64 from the Java util class, and then pull in the JAX-B dependency so that the app can use those JAX-B APIs. All right, that's great. So let me just show you. I know we're getting to the end of time here, so I want to show you that I do have all this source code on GitHub if you want to check it out. And I want to show you Depentabot. So I set up Depentabot and I set it up with my GitHub repo. So what it does is it looks at my Gradle file. It tells me, okay, by the way, you have, for example, like JUnit here. So I'm using JUnit 4.12 and it updated it for me to 4.13 when it saw that there's a major update out there. Creates a pull request for me. All I need to do is merge it. So if you're on GitHub already, you can definitely use something like this. Just a really small caveat: if you use a tool like this, make sure your testing is really good, because you don't want to just kind of sneak in changes without testing it really well. But it's really nice because then I didn't have to do it myself. I just needed to review and merge. Cool. All right, so let's go back to the presentation. So that's all I wanted to show for the demo. So next steps for you. So what should you do after this session? First step is grab that app and run it on Java 11 or 14, whatever you're going, and see if it runs. If it runs, then you don't have to worry about this anymore. Just run your test and you're all good to go. If it doesn't run and you get errors, you can either go off and Google away, or you can run tooling like the binary scanner or JDEPs or any of those tools. I included the command right here for you so that you can just copy paste it and run it. Fix your app code. I did it really quick. You know, run it again. It might fail again. You might look at it, figure out if you ran it, if you fixed it just right, you know, the cycle that we always get into. And just keep doing that until your app runs successfully. You're also going to need to update your tools. I just kind of include this step as an optional. Maybe your tools are already updated, so you don't have to, but you're more likely going to need to update your, you know, your Maven, your Gradle, your other tools that you're using, Eclipse or anything like that. Make sure you run all your testing. So you shouldn't be doing updates without proper testing. Get your automated testing, manual testing, whatever you're doing. Make sure that you do proper testing and you're testing your application after you migrate. Lastly, if you get it working, celebrate and let me know if the tools helped at all or didn't. We're always looking for improvements to go right back into the tool. I just got an improvement for Java 11 migration. It's always great to hear, you know, where we could help and where we could improve the tooling. Getting rid of that toolbar at the bottom. Some links for you. I did include the blog that I had the written tutorial version of what I just did with the demo. You can go back and listen to the recording or just read the blog. I know some people do better with blog posts, so you can check it out right here. I included a link to the binary scanner right here. We also have an equivalent of the binary scanner as an Eclipse plugin. So if you're using Eclipse, you can download this plugin, and it's gonna, instead of looking at your binary code, it's gonna look at your source code, and it's gonna tell you the issues right within Eclipse, and you can just double click and go where the issue is. I included the GitHub repo link right here, the JVM ecosystem report. I thought it was a really interesting read, so highly recommend that. Support roadmap, this is gonna include all the dates that you want to be you know, aware of. And if you're looking at migrate from Oracle Java to adopt OpenJDK, I found this really useful article about differences and how you can go about doing that. Lastly, if you want to check out what we ended up having to do for OpenLiberty to migrate to Java 11, I also included a blog post by Andy Giver right here. All right, so that's all I wanted to talk about today. Any questions?
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, I know.
It is a lot. No, but still, I think you you mentioned it quite well in the steps you need to take, because if you do it like in a ordinary or in an ordered way, it's not so much of a problem, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, there are some questions. Shall we first go to the poll, because you also put in a poll on the live session
Yes.
channel.
Yes,
And
let me switch to Slack.
Oh yeah, sure. Luckily, I can already spreadsheet that nobody is on Java 6 anymore. So that's
I should have made that poll anonymous, Brian. I
Maybe.
think that's the problem. No one is going to admit being on Java 6 or 7.
Oh yeah, exactly. No, fair enough, fair enough. And 7 the same way, but you see that I'm like pleasantly surprised that although Java 8 is still a lot of people that are also there are also a lot of people on Java 11 or higher than that. So I think that is a good sign, right? So okay, thank you. If please keep voting on the poll because we're just interested. It's not a judgment call. Well, maybe it is or not. Well, whatever. Anyway, I've got a couple of questions in the chat, and there's also some discussion going on. First question was, or actually was a remark on Jack's B, but you actually showed already that you just have to update your dependencies in Maven for that. Let's get to the first real question. Like the first question by somebody was like, when is the end of life for Java 8? And I think end of life is like depends on like how you see it, right? But maybe you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, so technically end of life has already passed if you look at the roadmap site, but if you have extended support with Oracle or IBM or whoever, you have it a little bit longer. That's why my slide's a little bit vague on that. For public updates, those are no longer available, so technically it's gone, but it depends on if you have an extended support license or not. And I think the extended support for Java 8 got extended to 2030. So if you have extended support, you have a lot of years to migrate, but a lot of times I don't really mention that just because I don't want people to have to do all their migrations at, right before and then miss all those new features. But technically, extended support did go out until 2030, and that was announced a few months ago.
All right, for just a second, I will stop sharing your screen. Let me see if that works. Yeah, so we can have a conversation.
Yes.
So you say like even though you can buy extended support, you would consider like move up to newer versions, right?
Yes, I would recommend it just because you're going to have to do it anyways, and might as well do it to Java 11. And I showed Adopt OpenGDK as a place to get your free binaries. You can get it from other sources as well. But instead of paying for that, you can also upgrade and you can benefit from the security fixes, bug fixes, all that good stuff.
Yep, good question. Somebody was asking about what is that kill switch you talked about. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Because I think that's a very important part.
Yes. So it's an option. It's the illegal access option. And what it lets you do is it lets you have your application access modules that you should technically not be able to access. Once you set it to permit, which is what the default is, your application can access those modules no problem. So once you migrate, even though you in a module world, you shouldn't be able to access those modules, now you will be able to. And Brian, you can expand on that if you want to.
Yeah, and I think it's also the case like your own stuff, if you do not create modules yourself, it will already be put in the unnamed module, right?
Yes. Yep. If you don't have your stuff in a module already, it's going to be in an unnamed module by default.
Okay. I got a question here by Saif who just said, I recall a lot of issues when with the migration with PowerMock, and he tried to solve that and stopped after doing that for a week. But he was asking like, is it really beneficial to migrate to the upper version without modules?
Is it beneficial?
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, according to the survey that you guys did, a lot of people are still using Java 11, taking advantage of all the new features and just not using modules. So, maybe the modules gives you, being able to decrease your footprint and all that stuff. But with Java 11, you're getting everything else you would have gotten with Java 8, for example. So you're getting the bug fixes, your security fixes, the TLS 1.3, you're getting the new features, some of the really good features that you're getting that you wouldn't get if you're staying on Java 8. If that's not important to you, you can definitely stay into Java 8 as long as you can. But I think it is beneficial just because that's where people are headed. I just saw an announcement that Eclipse is no longer going to support Java 8 with IDE. So I'm seeing a lot of people in the field and the community just saying, we're just going to be upgrading more and more and faster. So that's probably where you want to start heading towards, is faster upgrading and setting up your pipelines to make it easier to upgrade.
Do you know, and of course, this is always a question that comes up, how about performance if I move from Java 8 to Java 11? Does it make any sense for me? And it also
Yes.
depends on your application, but in general, maybe you can elaborate.
So performance is a slide that I removed from my presentation for a reason. Yeah. Okay. So you have a little bit of performance degradation in certain areas around Lambdas when you go to Java 11 and other areas. I know they're working on it right now, so you're not getting the performance improvements that you would have gotten, going from 7 to 8 and going to 11. But I think the numbers kind of depend on what your application is using. In our case, for our app server, it was actually a little bit worse. So we're working on fixing that in Java itself and figuring out, okay, how can we make it better and faster? But maybe your app will see improvements. So you'll see articles out there on performance. Some people say it's gotten better. Some people say it's gotten worse. It's definitely depend on your application.
I get this question a lot of times, and I think that if you're looking at a specific application, you should make a heat map of what is the method that is called like a gazillion times and optimize that to the core instead of like looking at general optimization. Because I was talking to one of our friends, Venkat, last week, and he said, well, premature optimizations is the root of all evil, and I tend to agree with him on that. So other question about modularity. I mean, that switch is now there. What is your feeling? I know you're not in charge of this, but do you feel like we're keeping this in so we can just, without any doubt, continue to migrate to Java 17 in a few years?
Great question. So I heard rumors that the switch is going to be off by default starting Java 16. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't work for Oracle, so I don't know. And I've kind of talked to the Oracle folks, and I said, the migration track is kind of a little bit difficult. It'd be nice to leave it in there, but they're saying, we'd really want people to start utilizing things a little bit better, clean up their apps and take advantage of new features. So from my perspective, I hope it stays around. It's definitely something that Oracle's getting feedback on. But I have no idea if that's staying around. I hope so, just because I do want people to have as smooth of a migration as we can give them.
How do you feel about about the modularity stuff in general? I mean, personally, as a enterprise developer, I'm like, who cares? I mean, that's what you get a lot. Like,
yeah. It's definitely something that's challenging. So I talked to a lot of people from different backgrounds, and they were saying, I tried to break up my app into modules, and it was not worth the effort. We just backed out because it was so much work, and you're saving like this much space. Is it really worth it? So for some folks, and a lot of the apps that I'm looking at, it really doesn't make a difference. The app is so huge already that little bit of Java space is not a big deal. But in other cases, if you're talking about really restricted environments, then it makes sense. You should look into it. I also come from an OSGI background, so I've really gotten used to OSGI and how you can break up stuff using that. Open Liberty uses OSGI, so I love OSGI. To me, I understand why you would use it, but it is adding a level of complexity to have modules that maybe your app really doesn't need to worry about. So it's up to you. Like, it depends, that answer. It depends. Sure. Don't think you just need to go to modules. I think that survey question was a really good indicator that some people just don't think it's worth the effort, which is completely okay.
You mentioned Jakarta EE in your slide, and well, I think most of us know that there was an issue going on with the namespace. Do you think that I mean, you see that libraries will be removed, but now a whole namespace will be renamed, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it
What
will
do you
be.
think about, will that be a large impact? I mean, if you go on, there is no Java EE package anymore, or a Java X package anymore in whatever version. So,
Yes. So we've been talking and talking and talking about this for the past few weeks. There's a lot of big effort happening right now, figuring out how do we smoothly make that change, because any of the Java X classes, once you go to Jakarta E9, you're going to have to rename it to Jakarta. And we're trying to figure out how to automate that, actually. So there is a transformer tool out there that was developed by one of my colleagues at IBM that takes your application, and at build time, it replaces all your Java X to Jakarta. And that will allow you to still have Java X in your app, but then at build time, it switches it, and then you can start using Jakarta from there. Now, that's probably not just going to be the only step we take. I'm looking at what we can do in our tooling space to make that transition easier. We recognize it's going to be a large step, but automation is there to help us a lot. Luckily, it's a kind of a find replace problem, not all right, you need to replace this call with 3 different calls. So I'm sure we can figure out an automated way to do this replacement where it's going to be least amount of disruption as possible.
all right, that sounds interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, let's keep it to that. We're 8 past the hour, and there are a few questions and some discussion going on in the live session channel. So take a look afterwards. I know you're also on the Slack channel. First of all, I want to thank you for this talk. I really love this talk, and I really love the examples. And it's something everybody can just do tomorrow, basically. And it's not a hello world thing. It's an actual thing, like, what can I do to migrate? And I love that. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me, Brian. I really appreciate it.
All right, then I want to say goodbye. I want to say to everybody over there, like, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, and if you view this recording afterwards, feel free to put questions in the live session channel or ping Dalia directly.
Yep.
She already promised me that she will post the slides, so they will come up, and I will share a link on the YouTube the video as well underneath, so you can click on it and you can see all the commands she was using to use it. Well, this video is already live, so you can just rewind and see what you actually did, and she will take you through step by step once again.
I'll definitely post the slides. Feel free to ping me on Twitter, ping me on Slack. I'll be around for the next half an hour and get questions and hear about people's experiences, because we have a lot of people that are already on Java 11. So let us know when you migrated, what were the biggest issues you ran into? I love hearing that experience and learning about that in the field. So thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you, and see you all later for the next session.
Bye.